Gotcha. My name is Michael Spinell. I'm Lake Michigan Lakewide Action and Management Plan or LAMP Program Coordinator for Indiana. On behalf of the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, I'd like to welcome everyone in the fourth of a series of 10 free webinars on topics anticipated to be of interest in the watershed to the watershed protection and restoration community. Just so that everyone is aware, this session is being recorded. When the time comes for this question and answer, you can feel free to unmute yourself. If you would prefer, there is a chat window at the top of the right-hand portion of the screen in which you may type your questions. The webinar series is anticipated to run from now through February 2021 to coincide with the development of the 2020 to 2024 Lake Michigan LAMP. Once released, the LAMP will report out on the state of Lake Michigan and its ecosystem with respect to 9 high-level general objectives of the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement between the United States and Canada. Perhaps more importantly, it will also document the action priorities to be undertaken by the 21 federal, tribal, state, and local agencies and organizations comprising the Lake Michigan Lake Partnership to assess, protect, and restore the lake. Just like the forthcoming LAMP, this webinar series is targeted toward a broad audience, including watershed groups, MS4 coordinators, environmental organizations, land trusts, and members of the public. Each webinar will be scheduled for approximately 60 minutes from 1 to 2 p.m. Central or 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, unless otherwise noted. As everyone joining us today should be aware, IDEM has transitioned the webinars from Zoom to Microsoft Teams. Please be sure to refer to IDEM's Lake Michigan webinar series webpage, which I will post in the chat window for the latest scheduling updates and recordings of past presentations. Now, with that out of the way, it's my very great pleasure to introduce Nicole Messakar and Randy Dixon. Nicole is the Education Coordinator for the LaPorte County Soil and Water Conservation District, and Randy is the LaPorte County District Conservationist for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is an agency within the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to the two of you.
All right, hi, how's everybody? I am going to, start with just a little bit more about me. I work for the Soil and Water Conservation District, which is going to be the entire focus of our day today, and the NRCS, but really kind of how we work together. So I usually have to take an opportunity when I'm giving a presentation about something else and have a captive audience to talk about this topic. And I always make people listen to it. But now we get the whole opportunity to talk exactly about what we are and what we do and kind of the history. So I have some slides, although I'm going to keep it pretty conversational and definitely pop up with a question if you have one. But I'm going to start here. So let's start with this. Let's see. All right. I'm assuming everyone can see this. I'm just now looking at I've never done a Teams presentation before, guys, so I'm just looking at my own slides. I hope that means you see it too. So this is Hugh Hammond Bennett, and I love to always take the opportunity to talk about him because really he's kind of possibly one of the greatest American heroes that we've had in terms of natural resources. He was a soil scientist, and he wrote a lot about soil conservation pretty prolifically. And he's the reason that I'm here, that Randy's here, and that we do the things that we do because of his kind of unrelenting passion towards soil conservation. So this is an excerpt from one of his publications about soil conservation that really was kind of the main one that kind of got us to where we are. You can read it, but basically, what would be the feeling of this nation should a foreign nation suddenly enter the United States and destroy 90,000 acres of land, as erosion has been allowed to do in a single county? To visualize the full enormity of land impairment and devastation brought about by this ruthless agent is beyond the possibility of the mind. An era of land wreckage destined to weigh heavily upon the welfare of the next generation is at hand. And he was serious, man. He went around and did all this work and did as much as he could to get people to listen to him. So that word menace is something that he kind of uses frequently, and it actually made its way into some of our early legislation. So I'm not going to show this to you guys, but there is a I think it's about 20-minute film called Hugh, Hammond, Bennett, The Story of America's Private Lands Conservation Movement. It's really good. It's really well done. The Natural Resources Conservation Service put it out a couple of years ago, and I would recommend that everyone watch it. I don't think, nope. I think I have to escape out of it. I have it pulled up though to show you. No, I do not have it pulled up to show you. It closed. Let's see. Just so you can kind of see what happens when you get there. But this private lands conservation movement is really important. It's going to be kind of the guiding principle of everything that we're going to talk about. There we go. Okay, so that's this film. I recommend that you watch it. It's all about Hugh, Hammond, Bennett, who is the hero of the soil conservation movement in this country. All right. In my PowerPoint back. There we go. And out of the long list of nature's gifts to man, none is perhaps so utterly essential to human life as soil. It's hard to argue with that. So we all know about the Dust Bowl, right? We've probably seen these and many, many other photos like this. This is where it sort of all started, right? We were having these, not only the worst natural disaster that's ever occurred in this country, but a humanitarian disaster, ecological, environmental, economic disaster that we still haven't seen anything quite like it since. So this is kind of where it all began. And because of what was happening in the Great Plains, in 1935, the Soil Conservation Act was started. This is actually what enabled soil and water conservation districts and the Soil Conservation Service, which is now the NRCS since 1994, to be created. So it was designed to provide for the protection of land resources against soil erosion and for other purposes. So kind of open-ended there. That was the original legislation. And then in 1936, it got a little bit more refined into more of a formal policy. And I like this because it just shows that even back in the 30s, this country, if I may, tended to be very progressive and really attached itself to some progressive policy. So the Soil Conservation and Domestic Allotment Act was signed in 1936, and that sort of gave a little bit more teeth and context to that original 1935 legislation. But I like the quote by FDR: "The United States, as evidenced by the progressive public opinion and vigorous demand which resulted in the enactment of this law, is now emerging from its youthful stage of heedless exploitation and is beginning to realize the supreme importance of treating the soil well." Way back in the 30s, this is where we were. We still have a long way to go. So Indiana Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts is sort of our professional organization. It's sort of the organizing entity that disseminates information about the 92 soil and water conservation districts in Indiana. That worked. It's a miracle. This is right for the Indiana Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. This describes a little bit about what we are. We are subdivisions of state government that are administered through counties. So we're kind of an odd organization. We're, in terms of the state, we are sort of like the Department of Natural Resources, but not quite. Our funding primarily comes through the cigarette tax, which funds the Clean Water Indiana program, which is a program I'll talk a little bit more about. And we are all county employees. Most of us are county employees for purposes of salary and benefits. So we are county employees that really are of more of a state agency. Like I said, there's 92 of us. We are part of Indiana code. So soil and water conservation districts are written into the law of the state. And then we have our own district law that's a little bit different than any other organization. So here it says districts fill a unique and crucial role in conservation and stewardship. We do fill kind of a niche. We are really able to be fairly nimble because we're small and we can create our own funding, write grants. we can really easily target our work towards the needs of the county that we are in. So you'll notice that every soil and water conservation district in the state is a little bit different in terms of how they operate and the natural resources concerns that they address, because we're designed to be highly local, hyper local, and really address the concerns of the people and the land that we have in our county. So you'll notice, maybe in Monroe County, they have issues with karst topography. That's not something we're going to be dealing with in LaPorte County, and nobody would be expecting us to. So we can really kind of target our action. We are sort of a hub. We can connect. We do a lot of connecting. We don't necessarily always do all of the conservation ourselves, but our goal and our job is to try to find the information. So there's a lot of stuff on this website. There's stuff here for districts, because as I said, this is our professional organization. But there's also, information for the public as well. Annual report for the National Association of Conservation Districts, sort of our umbrella organization at the national level. A lot of information here. I'm going to talk a little bit more at the end about the ICP, which is the Indiana Conservation Partnership, which we are part of. Okay. Go. Okay, so this is us. This is the LaPorte County Soil and Water Conservation District. So as I said, we're all very hyper local. We address our own natural resource concerns in the county. I'm going to just show you a little bit. Oops. There we go. A little bit about what we do specifically in the county. This is our website for swcd.org. You can find information here about us, our board, members, the things that we do. Interestingly, to this group, I think we do, and all soil and water conservation districts that I'm aware of, either lead or participate in a lot of watershed management. So here in LaPorte County, we have worked on the development of the Trail Creek Watershed Management Plan, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. This takes you to the Watershed Partnerships website. And then we've also developed the Galena River Watershed Management Plan that was actually developed by the Soil and Water Conservation District. Oh, look, Randy, we have to update this. Teresa Wikovich is still on there as our district conservationist. So this is a link to that plan. We have,
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I think if you're trying to show us the actual website, we're just seeing your PowerPoint slide right now.
Oh, crazy. Okay, so I'm looking at my website. I had a link in there, like an embedded link. Thank you for telling me this. Okay. Wow. So I'm not sure how to address that, because was that the same thing with the previous Indiana Association as well?
Yeah.
Oh, bummer. I was so excited that that worked on my end. So I don't, I'll send you guys links. How about that? And then we'll just move beyond it. So what I was showing you is our website. LaPorteSWCD.org is our website. The Indiana Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. Let's see. Their website is iaswcd.org, and I'll send those links out if anyone is interested in those. I apologize for that. Thanks for letting me know, though, Michael. So I have a couple of just general statistics about agriculture in here. This is not necessarily super relevant to what we're talking about today, but it sort of sets the tone for why soil and water conservation districts are important and why it's important for us to work with NRCS through the USDA, because agriculture is growing, our population is growing, and demand for agricultural products is growing. So this is from the Danforth Center for Plant Science. Compared to 2005, consumer demand in 2050 is estimated to drive farmers to produce 80% more meat. 80% more meat. That's a lot of pooping, right? So we all know, we work in water quality. We know what that means for water quality. More grain, more roots, more tubers. So more of these things being produced means more pressure on the land and our water resources. And that means there is much more of an urgent need for conservation. So this is one of the reasons that soil and water conservation districts and NRCS are very important. So this is just, an example of different kinds of conservation practices that we promote. So this is one of the things that a soil and water conservation district can do. Randy will talk to you a bit about his programs and how they work and their deadlines and eligibility. Soil and water conservation districts can sort of fill in gaps. So for example, right now we have a partnership. The LaPorte County Soil and Water Conservation District has a partnership with Newton County, Jasper County, Porter County, and and we have just sort of a small cost share available. So we have some funds available for producers in the Kankakee River watershed that maybe are experiencing compaction issues from mucky soils, that type of thing, so that we can help them maybe take some of that ground out of production and install either cover crops or more of a deep-rooted perennial crop to kind of alleviate some of those not only problems for the farmer, but problems that can lead to decreased water quality. So it's a great place for soil and water conservation districts to kind of pop in and fill some of those gaps and provide technical assistance and that sort of thing. So these are different conservation practices. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. This is something I actually use when we do the Ag BMP presentation for the Indiana Master Watershed Steward class, which is another type of outreach that Soil and Water Conservation District staff often engages in, is that type of thing. Reality is no single agricultural technology or farming practice will provide sufficient food for the world. So we need to do all of these things, right? All the stuff, all the conservation that we can do. So that's why this is a very important role that we play. This is probably a little bit more Randy's area. This comes from the NRCS, but this is the type of thing where the soil and water conservation districts are very heavily engaged in promoting soil health, whether it's an urban soil health or rural, traditional agricultural soil health. That's a very, very big, important movement in the soil and water conservation world right now. Our soil food web, this is something we want to encourage. I'm just going to flip through these really quick because, like I said, it's just more of an example of the types of things that we do. We want to increase organic matter in our soil. We want to maintain our soil structures, and we want to keep them covered. So this is the Don't Farm Naked Plant Cover Crops t-shirt that's out there floating around somewhere. But cover crops are definitely something that soil and water conservation districts do a lot of promoting. And there's, once again, some districts do, so Porter County, for example, it does a fantastic job of promoting cover crops. They've done test farms and they've had soil pits and really been doing long-term research on the effectiveness of cover crops. That's something that soil and water conservation districts strongly promote. Why we should have cover crops, all of the benefits of cover crops. We can talk about that in another day, but they're very important. And this is some examples of some different cover crops that are out there: rye and crimson clover and different legumes, peas. I'm going to skip through some of these things. We know about this, right? This is really important. Nutrients in the water. So one of the things that different districts get involved in is larger scale watershed level, big watershed level nutrient reduction programs. So Lake Erie River Basin has a big nutrient management program. So kind of by working together regionally, soil and water conservation districts can have a bigger impact. So that's something that we get involved with. And I want to talk about the Indiana Conservation Partnership. And now I'm scared you guys are not going to see my links. So tell me, Michael, do you see this?
No, we don't see that. But if you want to do that, maybe at the conclusion of your presentations, you could try resharing like the web page, maybe. Sure.
So since you can't see it, I'm just going to tell you about the Indiana Conservation Partnership, which is what I find to be a pretty innovative partnership in the state. It's 8 Indiana agencies. Here they are. We are part of that. And we work together to share resources. That might be office space, that might be tools, that might be a drone, that might be information or bandwidth or whatever it might be. But the Indiana Conservation Partnership organizations work together to get conservation on the land and to people that need it. I can't show you the website. There's a lot of different leadership programs out there, training programs, events. I think it's a pretty innovative thing. We all like to kind of crap on Indiana, but I think this is something really cool that Indiana does that I don't know that a lot of other states are involved with. So the Indiana Conservation Partnership is something that you should be aware of because there's a lot of power there and a lot of resources that can be sort of engaged. One of the, I think, coolest things that soil and water conservation districts are involved with is the Conservation Cropping Systems Initiative, which has just really exploded over the past several years. They're now in the process of creating an urban soil health program and providing technicians to get involved with that. This is basically a partnership, sort of a group, an entity. It's kind of all of these things. Provides mentoring for farmers, so a farmer can actually get involved with this and get high quality professional level mentoring from other farmers that have really mastered the art of cover cropping and no-till, and really putting these conservation cropping systems into place. There's workshops and field days, trainings. It's a really fantastic program that I think more people should be aware of. And this can be something that can fit in nicely with a watershed management plan, because we all know that when we do watershed management plans, a lot of the land that we need to address is agricultural. So the CCSI can kind of help fill that role of trying to address the agricultural portions of our watershed management plan. Yeah, so this is pretty fantastic. It's something I think Indiana should be really, really proud of. I cited this statistic down here in 2012. Indiana led the nation on acres of cover crops planted. So that's pretty amazing. We do a really good job with cover crops in Indiana. NRCS, I was going to take you to their website to show you some of the things that are there and some of the ways that soil and water conservation districts work with the NRCS. But I think what I'll do is wrap up by saying that our current partnership with the NRCS is through something called a Conservation Technical Assistance Grant. So the LaPorte County Soil and Water Conservation District was invited to apply for a grant from the NRCS that was a pass-through through the National Association of Conservation Districts to increase our capacity to provide conservation technical assistance. So we will be doing that. We're currently actually hiring somebody to provide that service for us. So if you know anyone that wants to apply for LaPorte County Soil and Water Conservation District's soil conservationist position, I would love for you to send them my way. We'd like to get that filled as soon as possible, but that person will be working primarily in the Kankakee River watershed, helping to not only promote the goals of the Kankakee and Yellow River Basin Commission, Development Commission. They have a new work plan. There's a lot of goals in there that are related to soil conservation, wetlands, wetland preservation, that type of thing. So they'll be helping to get those goals in place, helping farmers do things on the land that will, prevent flooding, that type of thing. And then also helping Randy at the NRCS meet their goals for trying to, get people enrolled in programs and that sort of thing. And then just obviously in general, increasing water quality and decreasing erosion and that sort of thing. So it's going to be a really cool program. We're really excited about it. We're hoping to continue it permanently once our grant is over. But that's the type of thing that we do to work together so that we're all meeting the same goals and increasing conservation on the land. So I think that is a good place, to turn it over to Randy.
Okay, Nicole, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Randy.
I am going to just throw my PowerPoint up here so you don't have to look at my face and you can look instead at slides. Is everyone seeing the full slide at this point?
We are not seeing slides.
Not seeing slides. Hang on, we'll get there. So I'll talk for a moment while I get this working.
Randy, you're listed as being on hold right now, just so you know. So we're not hearing anything that you're saying if you're talking right now.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, I have zero idea what I did there. Let me continue to try to get to sharing some content here. How's that?
You got it.
Okay, my apologies. So I want to thank Nicole there. I think she did a pretty good deep dive into explaining really why we exist, not only really SWCDs all around the country, but why NRCS exists as well. So I'm not going to go back over all of that ground today. Really what I wanted to talk about a little bit is just what NRCS had to offer. I know many of you on the call today may not be completely familiar with NRCS and where we fit in federally and what we have to offer. So I want to just cover a little bit of that today. We are part of the United States Department of Agriculture. I think Michael mentioned that at the beginning when he did some introductions. And within USDA, there are in the neighborhood of 29 total agencies. So we are just one of many. The Food and Nutrition Service is in there, the Forest Service is in there, the Farm Service Agency is in there, and so on and so forth. And I looked a little bit online. I knew I had heard some pretty interesting statistics regarding funding for these agencies and the breakdown of USDA's total annual federal budget. And just one little bit of information I like to share with folks is that food and nutrition assistance makes up right at 70% of the total USDA budget. So when you think of the United States Department of Agriculture, I think a lot of us go to assistance to farmers, food production, those sorts of things. But in essence, 70% of the budget goes to food assistance. So that leaves not nearly as much for the other things as you may have originally thought. 18% of the total budget goes to farm and commodity programs, 6% to the other category, and where we fit in basically is the conservation and forestry, which is 7% total. And then if you break it down a little differently, NRCS makes up 0.51% of the total USDA budget each year. So we're still spending millions on conservation, but when you look at us in the context of the whole picture of USDA, unfortunately, we're probably not really considered that large a player. But I do still think with the money we have and with the partnerships like we do enter into with soil and water districts and the other members of the conservation partnership, we're able to really capitalize on the dollars that we have and make them go quite a ways. So I'm going to share statistics with you as I go through the program. I'm not going to try to bore you to death with these slides, but what I wanted to cover today is that we do offer a number of financial assistance programs through NRCS. I think Nicole mentioned kind of our roots go all the way back into the 30s with the Soil Erosion Service that became the Soil Conservation Service that in the 1990s changed over to the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Different names, but basically the same focus throughout. But for the vast majority of those years, we were a technical assistance organization. So district conservationists that predate me came on because they had specialties with technical assistance. They greatly understood farming in most all of its aspects. They were able to do survey and design work to help with erosion issues, especially gullying and those sorts of things. They were not contract and financial management specialists. We have now transitioned since about the mid-1990s into an agency that provides not only technical assistance, but a great deal of financial assistance as well. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of the more popular financial assistance programs that we have here in LaPorte County. Now, I see some other folks have tuned in from around the state, and certainly in your counties, you may have other programs that we offer that you spend more money on, that are more popular, you get more applications for. But up here, we are focusing really on two programs, EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and there's going to be a quiz at the end on how you spell that acronym, and then the Wetland Reserve Easement Program. So in this program today, I've whittled it down basically to those two programs. Now, in all of our programs, they're voluntary. We are not an agency that has any control over farmers or landowners and what they do with their land. We never have been, and I hope we never do become a regulatory agency. But we want to work with those folks that willingly want to improve the level of conservation on their land. For the majority of the time, we're working with private landowners, but we are able to work with non-governmental entities. We do work with land trusts, and I know we've worked with a realm and a wide range of other entities that are out there. So, you know, if you're a system of county government or state government, we cannot provide financial assistance. We can provide technical assistance. But if you're a private landowner or you work with private landowners, we can certainly work with you. So under EQIP, there are a great number of different practices that we offer that cover a wide range of land uses. So in the past, some of you may remember in the 1990s, early 2000s, a program called WIP, the Wildlife Habitat Incentives Program. And WIP went away with the passage of the 2014 Farm Bill. And basically what they did was took all of the wildlife related practices that we were helping to cost share on and rolled those up into EQIP. So now under EQIP, we are helping to fund wildlife habitat related practices, everything like from wetland restorations to pollinator habitat establishment to control of woody invasives, tree planting, so on and so forth. We do a range of practices, and some of those are fairly popular here in LaPorte County, especially what we call biomass, which is a hay or pasture crops. So we do a fair bit of that. Again, some pasture land improvements, and so on and so forth. Probably the number one, well, there's no doubt the number one practice that we have here in this county in terms of acres covered and dollars spent is cover cropping with farmers. And I know Nicole mentioned how good a job Indiana does with cover crops. And I will say here in LaPorte County, if you're not familiar with us, we are the second largest land coverage county in the state. And we have a great deal of land under agricultural production. And I believe the statistic is still true that we're the number one county in the state in terms of center pivot irrigation acres. So what that results in is a lot of specialty crops being produced here. Everything from tomatoes to seed corn to cucumbers, green beans, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of those crops are situated in a way that they come off fairly early. And we have seen a great uptick of producers in the county putting cover crops on a lot of those specialty crop and center pivoted acres, in addition to other traditionally managed row crop acres. One of the things I looked up as we prepared for this was how many EQIP contracts we've had in LaPorte County since EQIP began. And currently it's a total of 120 contracts covering right at 30,000 acres of conservation practices. And we have spent just over $2 million in the span of the EQIP program, which goes back to the early 2000s. So we by no means here in LaPorte County lead the way in terms of dollars spent or acres covered, but I think that gives you a good example of just how much money, though, can be brought into a county through a program like EQIP. So talking about eligibility for EQIP, if someone wants to apply, they do have to meet some eligibility standards. There's an adjusted gross income standard that they have to meet, making less than $900,000 roughly annually on average in order to be qualified. They have to have land that's eligible and some other eligibility pieces. Again, I'm not going to go into all the details, but if you have questions about the eligibility portions that go along with EQIP or any of our other programs, you're always welcome to reach out to your local NRCS office, talk to your DC, and they can answer those questions for you. And I know I shared a document with Michael that I think you were trying to put up on your website as a link. So that may be available too at the end of the program. We do try to work with limited resource or what we call historically underserved participants. So everyone from beginning farmers to limited resource farmers, veterans, et cetera. In some cases, we do prioritize EQIP applications based on your historically underserved category. And generally, there's an increase in the cost share rate if you're in a historically underserved category. So again, just some more of the eligibility pieces showing up here on this slide. But basically what happens, and we are in a phase right now where we're taking EQIP applications. The EQIP application deadline comes up on December 18th for the current funding cycle. So if you're interested, if you know someone that's interested in EQIP, they would need to get an application in by December 18th to move forward with an application for fiscal year 21. But we take those applications, we do an on-site evaluation of the land. We help the folks make sure they meet all their eligibility requirements. And we eventually do a complete assessment of the land, a ranking, and then we basically, from around the state, start at the top of any particular category, funding category, with the dollars that we've gotten from Congress in that given year. We start ranking with the top, we start funding with the top rank application and work our way down until we run out of money. And just kind of a for instance, in 2019 in Indiana, we spent $23.5 million on EQIP related practices. So that gives you a rough idea of how much we spend. Now, again, that changes annually. EQIP was reauthorized with the 2018 Farm Bill, but the amount of money we get each year varies. Indiana is famous around the country for not only funding and spending all of the money that we get in our first allocation from Congress, but we go back to the well and we tell our headquarters, hey, if you've got other states that haven't spent all their money, we have applications sitting here ready to go, and we'd be happy to fund some more of them. So typically Indiana ends up funding and spending more than just our original EQIP allocation each year. And in 2019, for that $23.5 million, that constituted just over 1,500 total contracts around Indiana's 92 counties. So quite a bit of impact, I think, around the state with this particular program. And again, if you want to apply for EQIP, your local district conservationist can help work you through that. All right. I'm going to move on from EQIP. What I just want to touch on as I round that out is that with any financial assistance program, but EQIP in particular, what we're trying to accomplish with programs like this is addressing natural resource concerns. And I probably should have let off with that, but applications that come into us that are addressing a multiple number of resource concerns, things like soil erosion, water quality, pesticide use, wildlife-related resource concerns, so on and so forth. When we touch more resource concerns with an application, it tends to rank higher and have a better chance of getting funded. So if I have a producer come in that wants to apply for cover crops and the fields they're applying under have been cover crop for the past 6 or 7 years, they've probably already met most of the cover crop resource concerns that we could consider addressing. So those applications don't typically rank very high and they don't have a very good likelihood of getting funded. It's almost counterintuitive, but the areas that we have the greatest number of resource concerns or natural resource issues are the ones that tend to rank the highest and lead to funding. So it almost seems a bit like a catch-22 that we're not rewarding those landowners or producers that are doing the best job through EQIP. But we do have another program tailored for those high-end managers, and most of you will be familiar with the CSP or Conservation Stewardship Program. It's not one I'm going to go into detail on today, but I just wanted to explain that EQIP really is there to help address particular natural resource concerns, and then CSP is there to work with already high-functioning landowners and producers and to try to just raise their level of conservation stewardship a little bit higher. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving, and then at the end, if there are questions about EQIP or the next program I'm going to talk about, I'd be happy to back up and even go backwards in slides and talk about it. So for years and years, we had a program called the Wetland Reserve Program, WRP. It almost became its own brand. And then under the 2014 Farm Bill, we decided to change the name from WRP to WRE. So you may hear both of those terms kind of used interchangeably today. I know I still always seem to revert to WRP when I'm talking about this program. So if I do that today, My apologies, that's just the acronym that's stuck in my brain. But WRP falls now under the umbrella of our Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, which also takes in agricultural land easements. And here in LaPorte County, we don't have any ag land easements. Those are done differently than wetland reserve easements are, and I'm not going to delve off into that today. I'm going to focus instead on wetland reserve easements and a little bit more about the details of those. Here in LaPorte County, we have right at 50 total easements that have been recorded for WRP, WRE. And we are just over 2,600 acres in all of those easements combined. And that's physically located here in LaPorte County. So we feel we're doing a really good job with this program. There are a few counties in the state that would have more total easements than we do and more total acres than we do, but we are definitely in the top 5% in the state of Indiana in terms of total number of easements and acres covered with this program. So we're pretty proud of that, and we continue to push this program, and we continue to have new applications every year, and we tend to close on new easements almost annually in this county. This program works very similar to the other cost-shared programs that we have, in that we get a varying amount of money from Congress each year to fund this program. So Indiana tends to spend every nickel that we get and not be able to fund all of the WRE applications that we get in each year. The way that this program works, typically the easements that we record with WRE are permanent easements. We do have some that are 30-year easements that will have an expiration date, but the majority of the easements around the state of Indiana that we've recorded through WRE are permanent easements. So once they're protected forever. And I think that's a very key element of this program, that these deeds that get recorded on these properties, the vast majority of them are in perpetuity. Doesn't matter if the property gets sold, doesn't matter if it changes hands, those provisions still are enforced by NRCS. There is a payment rate that goes along with having your acres accepted into the program. And currently for ag land that's currently in ag production that goes into the program, we're just over $4,900 an acre in a one-time payment on those acres. And then what we would call additional acres or non-eligible acres, things like woodlots or ditch banks, those sorts of things that aren't currently cropped to ground, that payment rate is just a little bit over $2,000 an acre currently. Now that varies around the state of Indiana, and it's generally established by what we call the geographic area rate cap, or GARC, where it's based on market trends in your area. And from what I understand, by Farm Bill law, we are capped out at $5,000 an acre in what we can spend. So at 4,900 and change, we're pretty close to that maximum right now. So if you have people out there that are waiting around to apply for WRE because they think they're going to make more money down the road, well, it's going to at least take a change in Farm Bill program policy before that can happen, because we're awfully close to that limit. Now, interestingly, here in LaPorte County, all of our easements that we have are in the Kankakee watershed. They may be on a tributary to the Kankakee and not on the main branch itself, but they're all in the Kankakee watershed. So here, if you're not familiar with LaPorte, we have a glacial moraine where everything north of that moraine runs into Lake Michigan, and basically everything south of that, within reason, everything runs into the Kankakee. So we don't have any easements currently on the moraine or that are protecting waters of Lake Michigan. And I would love to get some easements up that way. But the reality is we get additional points for being in a priority watershed, the Kankakee, and that tends to help those applications rank a little higher. So what are some benefits of WRE? You've been sitting there staring at this slide for 5 minutes while I drone on. Obviously, we're looking at wildlife benefits. In particular, we like to record easements where we are protecting some threatened or endangered species. That often happens where we know those species tend to exist in the neighborhood of easements that we're closing on. But certainly we have other benefits of improving water quality, flood reduction, floodwater storage to some extent, and so on and so forth. So quite a number of benefits. But again, just keep in mind that most of these are permanently protected sites. So the benefits that may not exist today may exist down the road as we kind of build a critical mass or a framework of easements in a particular location. And I don't have the map to pull up for you today, but it is a publicly available layer, our easements layer, and you can see where we're starting to cluster a lot of these easements in close proximity to one another. So down the road, I think we may have some more kind of geographic scale benefits that we see for protecting a lot of ground under wetland easements. So again, as I mentioned, our easement program can be permanent or 30-year. The difference for the participant is that on a 30-year easement, we only pay 75% of that rate that I mentioned of $4,900 and change or $2,000, only pay 75% of that. And under a permanent easement, we pay 100% of the restoration costs. Well, on a 30-year easement, we only pay 75% of the restoration costs. And the way we ensure that the landowner pays their 25% is we hold an estimated 25% out of their easement payment, and we use that to pay the bills, basically, as restoration is underway. And you might wonder, what kind of restorations do we do? Well, tomorrow I'm meeting with the landowner, his contractor, and our engineer to go over a design for ditch plugs to hold water on the site and keep that water from leaving through a ditch to another ditch. And we're also doing some macro excavation where we're taking out sediment from an area that would have historically been a shallow wetland and restoring that back to shallow wetland condition. We do a lot of herbaceous plantings. We do a lot of tree and shrub establishment, so on and so forth. But our main goal typically is to restore hydrology to the site. And again, eligible lands, they have to have had some kind of cropping history to be eligible. They also have to have wetland soils. And I'm not going to get into every detail of what makes land eligible, but basically you have to have wetland soils with a cropping history. That cropping history could have been back in the 1940s and 50s. That could still get you eligible for the program. You probably won't rank as high as an application where we're taking a lot of currently cropped acres out of production, but nonetheless, you would still be eligible to apply if those were wetland soil acres. The minimum size for an easement application is 15 acres. So you'd have to have at least 7.5 acres of eligible land, and then we let you match on a one-to-one basis eligible land with additional acres, ancillary acres. So if you're interested in that, you can really grow your application quite a bit if you have wooded acres and other acres that you'd like to put in the program that don't have that cropland eligibility. Again, I know this is a lot of information to digest quickly, so if you have questions about WRE, you're always welcome to give me a call or to talk with your local district conservationist, and I'm sure they can help better explain it. So there's no specific deadline for applying for WRE. You can apply with your local service center at any time, but there are cutoffs for annual rankings. So I don't know exactly what that deadline is for this year. I know we are in the process right now. We did a ranking on a site in LaPorte County this week, and our easement specialist from Lafayette is trying to wrap up all the easement rankings here prior to Christmas. So just keep in mind, you can apply at any time. You can send a landowner to us at any time. There may just be a delay between the time they apply and the time we come out and rank the site. So similar to EQIP, we actually rank the application. It gets a final score, and then throughout the state, we just, we go highest to lowest, and we start at the top, and we take money off the top for the highest ranking application, and we just work down as far as we can go in any given fiscal year and fund as many applications as we can. So once an application is accepted for funding, the landowner commits that they want to move forward. We can then order a survey, a legal survey of the property. A surveyor is hired, the boundary is marked. We make sure that we've met the landowner's desires with which acres are in and which acres are out. We can make some small adjustments at that time. And then those acres that are defined by the survey will be the acres used to record at the time of closing. And it's at the time of closing that the payment is made for the easement. And as you imagine, with some of the sizes of these easements, some of those payouts are fairly large. But again, NRCS pays for the survey. We pay for the restoration. We pay for the closing and all of those components with any of the permanent easements that we record. So I'm going to move away just briefly again from financial assistance programs and just remind everybody again that we started out as a technical assistance agency, and we still like to think that that's at the heart of what we do. So I know many times throughout the year I'll get a call from a landowner, sometimes even outside the county, that has questions about how to best manage their land. Many occasions those are wildlife related questions, but we'll go out and do a site visit and provide simple technical assistance for them. We can help do conservation plans that have nothing to do with financial assistance. And we do still have landowners out there that want to go on with projects and don't want to wait around to see if they're going to get funded through EQIP or some other program. They just have a desire to do the right thing and to do it on their own dime. And we applaud those folks, and we are more than happy to continue to provide that level of technical assistance to people that are interested. So again, there's no eligibility requirements or issues for landowners that want technical assistance. They would just call the USDA office, and we work with them to provide whatever assistance we can. And this rounds us back to the idea of partnership. I know the district and NRCS here have been working a lot on pollinator related projects where folks will call over to the district asking about pollinator habitat establishment, those sorts of things. And there have been some site visits where the district went out, Nicole and another employee with our district, and made an initial site visit and then referred them to NRCS, or we've gone out jointly and done site visits. So there's a lot of opportunity there under CTA or even our Farm Bill programs for partnership with the local district. One thing that Nicole and I haven't talked about, but we are a little different in this county in that we are not co-located. SWCD has not been in the NRCS office for about 10 years. They're at a separate facility with Purdue Extension out near our fairgrounds. So we don't see each other every day. That provides some challenges, but we do still work very hard on a daily basis to try to maintain that partnership. So again, just some slides finishing up about CTA, who we can provide CTA to. We work with local parks department here, and we can work with governmental agencies to provide technical assistance. We're happy to do that. So I'll leave this slide up for just a minute before I close this out and go back to my straight video. You can jot that information down if you'd like. You're more than welcome to reach out to me by email or phone, and be happy to answer any questions about any of these programs that I can. So Michael, I think at this point that kind of wraps up what I had to offer. If you're ready to start taking questions, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for either Randy or Nicole? Okay, well, we're kind of waiting for folks to think out their questions. I had one. Do you two find that you have any, you get any frequent questions, or do you have any kind of, I guess, misconceptions that you notice people have about your programs?
Nicole, you want to start or you want me to?
I mean, our main, misconception is that we're the water department. People want to pay their bill. When we get, I would say we get at least 2 to 3 calls a day. People wanting to pay their water bills. So that is something, in your county, you're trying to pay your water bill. Try to pay attention to the difference between soil and water and just your water department. But we also get things like, I'm trying to think of some of the common things that we get. People want us to come out and do soil testing. We don't do that. We help people find the appropriate place to send their soils. It's usually their extension office. In our case, it's the extension office. But we don't do, soil testing for organic matter or nutrients or that sort of thing. That's a big one. Well testing. A lot of folks think we will test their wells. That's the health department. But it's a good thing we know where to send people, because we do get a lot of requests for things that we don't do. But that's probably the main ones: well testing, soil testing. How about you, Randy?
Yeah, I don't know that we have a lot of misconceptions necessarily about what we do. I think, moreover, the misconception is where we fit in. A lot of folks call us and think we're either DNR or related to DNR in some way. I do get law enforcement, conservation officer type questions that come in from time to time. But that's true of us. It's true of Purdue Extension. A lot of folks just don't quite understand. There's a broad network of conservation partners out there, fortunately. And, sometimes it just takes a little explaining to let them know, where we all fit in. I do get calls each year, several of them from realtors that need soils information, that sort of thing. We use that as an opportunity to teach them about web soil survey and some of the other online resources that are out there. But again, we try to be helpful wherever we can, even if we're not the correct agency when they first call in. We also get a lot of questions about, I'm going to dig a pond. What permits do I need? There you go. There we reference them to IDEM and DNR and let them go that route. Again, we're not regulatory. We don't write permits. We don't issue them. We do wetland delineation, wetland determinations, but those deal with Farm Bill and participants' eligibility for participating in Farm Bill programs or receiving Farm Bill benefits from Farm Service Agency. So that's as far as we go.
Okay, thank you both. Does anybody have any questions? Again, feel free to use the chat window. It looks like a little conversation balloon in the upper portion of your screen, or alternatively, unmute yourself and just provide your question directly.
And while people are thinking, I mentioned there was going to be a quiz at the end. So the quiz is the acronym for EQIP. I'm just going to give you the answer, but if you email me with EQIP as your acronym for EQIP, I'm going to delete your email and not respond to you. That's not true. I won't do that. But we get EQIP all the time. And I know I was taught to U follows Q and all of that stuff, but it's EQIP. So if you saw that acronym throughout the PowerPoint there and you thought I was using the wrong, I was spelling it wrong, that is actually how it's spelled, EQIP. So if that bothers your grammatical sensibilities, my apologies, but that's where we're at.
Are there any questions for Nicole or Randy? I do want to point out that I did post, I think, most of the links you guys referred to in the chat window, so folks can click on those links and explore those.
Thanks, Michael. I also want to remind everybody that we're hiring. I need a good person. So send that person my way. If anyone is interested, I can send out that the job posting. It is on the LaPorte County government website right now as well.
And that candidate's going to work with NRCS and the district. So you're welcome to call Nicole or I with questions about that. But ultimately, you're going to apply through LaPorte County, and Nicole can probably answer those questions better. But in terms of what we're doing together with that position, I think either one of us can answer those questions pretty well.
Okay, last call for questions.
Thank you, Michael, for inviting us, and thanks to everybody that tuned in today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we had a good turnout. Thank you so much for your time, both of you. I just wanted to make a little programming note here. Our next session is scheduled for Wednesday, December 2nd, after the Thanksgiving holiday, and that'll be via Teams. Check the IDEM webpage for information, and we'll get this video, get this recording posted as soon as possible. I'd like to just thank you guys so much again. I know how much work you put into this presentation, and I know everyone here really appreciated it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.